Hey Dave, how are you doing tonight?
I am wonderful. And yourself?
I'm doing pretty well, other than the fact that winter weather is definitely visiting us both here in Cincinnati.
Yes.
But yeah, did you get outside tonight and see the snow coming down?
I did not. I'm a big baby. And so my day job, I'm a teacher and I have to go out with the kids in recess and I'm like shivering. So when I get home, I'm bundled up. So nope, I did not go out.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, anyway, so for those that don't know, this is Dave Thompson. He has a game called Everlore from Manchild Limited. The website is manchildltd.com, and they have a regular Twitch stream on Thursday nights, which is Evermore with Everlore. And we're going to talk about his game. And also, I just found out tonight there's some other things going on that he might want to talk about. But thanks for being with me and being willing to talk about your game, Dave.
Oh, well, thanks for having us. I'm real excited. I love talking about it every chance I get. So I appreciate you for offering to have us on.
Yeah, and I know you've been working really hard because I've seen you at you were at Origins this past summer, and then you're at Cincinnati Con, and I know you've been doing even things like going to Boy Scout troops when they have things outside to share and sell your game. I love seeing a game that has that indie ethos to it, almost like when I was younger, I played some punk music and stuff. Like it's that same kind of ethos where you're out and like I'm gonna get this done no matter what.
Yes, yes.
So that's really cool. So yeah, tell us about Everlore and how you got started with the idea for the system and the world and all that.
I grew up just I was a voracious reader and I loved, anything I could read fantasy, I just would dive into. I love Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, things like that. Tolkien, definitely. So when I was about 16, one of my friends invited me over to play D&D. And I went over, I played the game, had a blast. I went over a second time. And, when my parents came to pick me up, I had a migraine. And both of my parents are ministers, and my father saw that I had a migraine, and he went ballistic, because he just thought we were like summoning demons and all of this stuff. And he was like, "Well, that's it. You can't play, anymore." And so that was the end of me playing role playing games while I was living under his roof. But my dreams were just, they were and they still are like very cinematic. And so I would just wake up, and even at that age, I would just write down my dreams in like little notebooks. And so I always had a passion to like share my dreams with like the world. I know that sounds, audacious or whatever, but it was just, I guess just growing up, it was just like in me to do something like that. And so when I finally got out of the house and, I started going into college, I went to the Art Academy of Cincinnati, and one of my capstone projects was to create a card game. And so I created a card game called Legions, and it was a playing card game that took place in a world called Mythandria. And so it involved 6 different armies that were battling together. And that was sort of the impetus for what turned out to be Everlore. Because after that game, life happened. I got married. Well, I was married and I had children, and, I had to, start working in the corporate world and all of that stuff. But through it all, I had the desire to create a world where, I could basically do anything I wanted to do. And
hmm
so I continue to build out the concept of Mythandria, and figured out, what would the gods be like. And so,
hmm
did a lot of different research on lore and things like that. And 20 years later, I had a bunch of books in my hands and a wonderful game called Everlore.
Yeah. So what would you, I mean, you already mentioned D&D. What would you say would help bridge the gap maybe between Pathfinder or D&D to your game? What are some of the ways that you bring people into your game?
So Everlore, it's a classless and levelless game that we always say that it promotes diversity and inclusion, and it uses the D12, and it has a point by method of character progression. So the way it works is that as you're playing your character, you gain experience points based on your gameplay. It's not like tied to sort of combat or anything like that. And as the name suggests, lore or mythology is very, heavy in Everlore. As I was designing the game, well, let me back up a little bit.
Sure,
I did
yeah.
play, Dungeons and Dragons for a while, and after I got out of my father's house, I tried to find different groups to play with, and I had some experiences that were not the best. I played with a couple of different groups, and I had. On different occasions, I would try to play a character that looked like me with brown skin, and I was told, you can't really play that character because one time a GM told me, well, they don't exist on this continent, or they do exist, but they're not in this campaign, or whatever. So I always had to play like some blonde-haired, blue-eyed character or something like that.
Wow.
And I started talking to other minority players and found out that was not that uncommon. That wasn't that unique to me. And so that was part of the impetus for me wanting to do something like this, because there were just many people out there whose story I was a part of, and so, I wanted to create something that spoke to everyone. And so when I was doing the research for creating this game, part of the reason that it took me so long is because I did a lot of research on various cultures. In school, I was a fairly decent student, but social studies was never my main thing. But I started studying, cultures like Polynesians, Scandinavians, Egyptians, the Zulu, things like that, because I wanted a lot of different cultures to be reflected in this. And so a lot of our gods, a lot of our spirits and things like that are in the realm of Everlore draw from a lot of those different cultures. And so as you, the player or the LM, are, reading through the materials in our world, we don't sort of beat you over the head with it, but it's sort of like how it is in our world. In the real world here, you're walking around, you might encounter someone who happens to be gay, but you don't know, because it's not like they have a sign saying, hello, I'm gay. They just are who they are. And so that's how it is in the realm of Everlore. You just interact with people, and over time, you get to know more about them.
With the lore in your game, is there like a creation mythos to it? Then you kind of, because that's a lot of different stories and mythos and culture to draw on. So how did you bring that all together?
We have 5 sort of main books. And the way we break them down is we have what's called the core books, and then we have lore books. Core books are pretty similar to what you would find in like Dungeons and Dragons. So we have our Traveler's Compendium, and that's sort of like the main player's book. We have the Chronicler's Delight and the Monster's Menagerie. So those 2 are mainly for the lore master. But then we also have what's called Inception, and it's a 20-page booklet which explains exactly that, the origins of the realm. Because the gods that rule over Everlore are not native to the realm. And so it explains how they got there, what they found when they got there, and then what happened when they created the realm of Everlore. And then we also have a book called Thy Kingdoms Come. And Thy Kingdom Come gives a little bit more detail on 10 of the most prominent kingdoms of Midian. And that's the primary continent that we deal with on the world of Mythandria. And so part of how I dealt with sort of meshing all of the various lores together is there's a concept called the Legion. And the Legion is a massive army that does not always exist. But there's a god called Shamira, and he's the god of chaos. And every once in a while, he orders the denizens of Mortir, and Mortir is like one of Mythandria's largest. It is actually Mythandria's largest continent, and he will order the denizens of Mortir to form the Legion, and it's just this massive, sprawling army. And he says, "Hey guys, go destroy something." And it could be like a citadel, it could be a city, it could be whatever. But they will en masse go and try to destroy whatever he wants them to destroy. And so because of that chaos that happens, when that legions lands on like a continent or whatever, it disrupts things. And so that causes citizens of whatever city or kingdom or continent to spread out. And so that diaspora mixes the cultures around. And so that's how I'm able to blend the different cultures in the world.
So what are you playing and reading these days that informs you as you continue to form this world? So that's 2 parts really, right?
Yeah. One of the things I did, I purposely stopped playing a lot of games when I started designing this.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because I didn't want to be overly influenced. And I didn't want to be like, I know that, all ideas out there are similar to other ideas, but I didn't want to get in a position where, I'd be designing this and someone would say, "Oh, you got that from so-and-so game," or whatever. And so I stopped playing games, role-playing games many years ago when I started designing this. But then what I did as far as the testing phase is I brought in testers that were still playing. And so we went through probably 4 years of testing with, people who had over a combined 120 years of testing of playing experience. As far as what am I still reading, one of my favorite authors is, R.A. Salvatore. I love, I still love fantasy. I've started picking up, some science fiction, and I'm dabbling a little bit in like some mystery stuff. And so one of the things that I'm most proud of as far as what we're doing with Everlore is we're not only just creating, the books and the adventure modules, but we're also expanding the lore of Everlore with our very first novel. And so uh, I actually finished that last year, and that was like something that I thought I just couldn't do. But it turned out well. I'm a little biased, but
Yeah.
I was very happy with how that turned out.
Yeah. So when you say you don't play any games, this is unique. You don't play board games or card games or nothing else anymore?
I can't say, I shouldn't say I don't play any games.
Yeah.
I do play
Okay.
games. I just part of it is it's a time factor.
Sure.
And so
Sure. You're a teacher, and that takes a lot.
I'm a teacher,
Yeah.
and then also working on this takes a lot of time. And so because I do the writing, I do the drawing, I do the research. Now that it's, working on it was one thing, but then once you finish it, then you have to market it, and so that is a whole other beast. And so then there's learning, how to use social media, how to do editing and all of this stuff. So it's not as simple as, just putting things online and then people will buy. So I don't have the freedom that I would like to have to play the games and things like that.
Sure.
And so I often hear people say, "Oh yeah, I could, you should just go and play this game and jump in this group and, interact more with these people." And I would love to do that, but I only have so much time. And so, but I do. I still play, some video games when I have the time. I do read a lot. I play like card games and stuff like that. It's just I don't have the time to invest in, spending hours playing role-playing games and things like that, because when I would be doing that, I would be taking from working on the next installment of the venture module and things like that, and which is things that my customers need. And so there's always that trade-off. When we get bigger and I have a staff, then I would be able to sort of sit back and do more of that. But at that time, sort of all hands on deck, and I'm pretty much all hands,
Yeah. Yeah. And you're wearing one of your shirts right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. What's the name of that one?
This is called the Firefinch.
Firefinch.
So
yeah.
It's interesting. When I started working on Everlore, I had never envisioned that I would be doing the writing, the editing, the drawings and things like that. I thought in my mind that I would, hire artists and all that stuff, but artists aren't cheap, writers aren't cheap, things like that. And so I had to do it. And I'm fortunate that, I have the ability to do it. And as I continue to do it, I continue to get better. And so I'm just, I'm happy that people have been responding well. And it's just amazing because, I look at, some of the initial drawings that I did, 5 years ago, to the drawings that we're doing now. And it's just everything keeps getting better. And so we're just keep, improving the product for, our fans.
So are you going to be at Ice and Dice Con in Eastgate area in January?
I just learned about it. And so I'm looking at the application. I do believe we will be.
Okay. Well, maybe I can, because I had seen your game and it looked interesting, and the more you talk about it, the more interesting it sounds to me too. So maybe I can sit in on a game there. What is, when you're sitting down with a new group of people, what is the most challenging thing? You said LM, so I'm assuming that's a lore master.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So what's the most challenging thing as a lore master in your system?
I think just as you're sitting down, from a player's perspective, the looking at the character sheet initially might seem daunting. And part of that is because the way I set it up, I I looked at the system as how is it as the way we are when we're born. I designed it so that when we're born with sort of natural abilities, and then we have abilities that we're just sort of good at as we're growing up, and then we have things that we have to study to get better at. And so the character sheet is built on those sort of three elements. And so traits are things that you're born with, and then things that called aptitudes are things that you're sort of naturally good at. And then your proficiencies are things that you have to get trained at. And so those are sort of the three base things that build out your whole character. And on the sheet, the way it works is that you purchase traits, and traits inform everything else. So if you purchase a trait, you will put that into other calculations on your sheet. And so it's just for players, they just have to understand where to put those calculations. And so initially, when you look at the sheet, it seems like there's a lot of calculations you have to do. But once they understand, oh, I just put this number in here, and then it goes there. And so what we're doing is we're trying to work on. We do have one that's like a PDF auto calculation. We're trying to get a simpler form, but again, it's just I'm learning how to do that. And so as I get better with that, we'll roll out a better one for that. But so as far as just from the customer, from the player standpoint, that might seem daunting, but once they understand how simplistic that actually is, they're like, oh, I get that, because once I change this number here, it informs all the other numbers. But then as far as just from the lore master standpoint, someone coming into our game, just getting out of the sort of mindset that often when people come, they think, okay, they have D&D in mind. And so they think classes, they think, you have to play a character a certain way. What we try to do is we try to provide ton of player agency. So you can be a character that, you can do. For instance, my character that I play on our stream is called Matatopa. And when I initially designed him, my idea was that he was going to be like this master archer, with tons of animals and, things like that. And so I initially, set him up to be that kind of guy. But as I was playing him, I found that I really wanted him to get in there and swing a sword. And so as I was, as I gained experience points, we call EP, I was able to purchase different proficiencies on the fly to start changing, instead of, him shooting, he wasn't shooting so much as he was picking up proficiencies to get better at swinging that sword. But I had the freedom to do that, and I didn't have to wait to an arbitrary number in order to do that. So it's just understanding the freedom that it comes with being able to adjust your character at any time.
Do you have a favorite locale in your universe then?
Right now, I think probably my favorite kingdom is Chalyuk-Sin, and that's patterned after it's sort of patterned after like the Native Americans, and it was it's the oldest culture of Midian. And it was fascinating as I was researching the information to build that culture out for our world. just things that I learned that I didn't really know. Like I didn't know that, in some instances they actually had cities and, some they
Mm-hmm.
had like walled cities and things like that, because in my mind, I go back to like the cowboy and Indian TV shows that I used to see, and they all had teepees and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm able to showcase some of those things in Chow Yuk Sin,
Mm-hmm.
and so, but then also blend that into the mythology so that there are different tribes within Chow Yuk Sin, so that there's a tribe that the Sinikit, and they basically deal with like undead, so they have, a large force of undead creatures that they use, to help defend the whole community. So different things like that, and they are closer to spirits than others are, and so just try to tie in sort of things from our world, but then the mythology of Everlore, and just blend that in, and that's just one of the cultures that I really like a lot.
Yeah. Well, you've spent a lot of time developing. There's languages, right?
Yes.
Or at least pronounced. Okay, because I saw that there were some different pronunciations for names and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And different cultures and things like that. What where would you tell someone to start who wanted to start getting into writing their own type of universe too? That was not D&D,
Yeah.
because that's always the we can't not talk about it,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
It's always there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how would you encourage someone who is just starting out?
The thing, first I would say is like figure out what you want, and because I had to think like, what did I like about D&D? Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, D&D is a fun game. So what did I like about it? What were some things that I would change?
Mm-hmm.
What were some things that I would like to see? And so I used that sort of as a springboard. And I had people telling me, well, you can't do that. You can't create a classless game. You can't create a levelless game. You can't create a, whatever. Okay. Maybe I was just ignorant, but I wanted to do what I thought I could do. And so then I would say, look at different, just pick up novels and look into fantasy, because there are a lot of different stories out there that can give you ideas for just worlds, and once you have sort of the basis for a world, you can come up with rules later, but having an understanding of how the world works, I think is a good way to start, because then you could say, okay, well, now that I sort of understand the world, then I can figure out what makes the world work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to figure out what the world was, because one thing I kept coming up against was, when I would talk about, diversity and, inclusion and things like that, people were
Mm-hmm.
saying, like, in defense of why D&D and many other systems weren't diverse, they would say, oh, well, that's just because it's patterned after, how our world used to be. Well, and in reality, I mean, the history of our world was actually more diverse than it's portrayed. But
Yeah.
But I still had
But
to contend with that.
yeah.
And so what I did is I said, okay, I came up with a structure that allowed me to get around that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so once you have an idea of your construct, then you can work with it. And so that's what I would suggest, is just, really getting in the books, figuring out what you want, writing it down, and then going from there.
So this is completely random, but have you ever read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell?
No.
No. Okay. Well, in it, there's like two magicians, and one ends up drawing on it's like Victorian England. There was a TV show too.
I saw the TV show. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So they end up drawing on the power of like the Fae and stuff. And but I read the book first, and like it is one of those that, you know, that was just the end of it, but I wanted so much more. And as you're talking about this, I think about that, like reading can really spark your imagination towards like wanting to create so much more.
Yeah.
So anyway, when you play, what's your goal most of the time personally?
You know, when I play, it's to have fun. But so here's the thing, like I often try to play like noble characters, you know, and I like and I think it's part of like growing up. Like I said, I used to read a lot, and I mean I still read a lot, but I was always drawn to, and I'm sure most kids were drawn to like the hero, but I was always drawn to like the moral hero. You know, I mean, you think Marvel, you know, Captain America, that's my guy, you know. And so my characters, I always want them to be sort of that moral center, you know. But and so it's like funny because like when we do like one shots or like, you know, learn to plays and stuff like that, sometimes I'll purposely sit down and do a character that's way out of that, you know, and just go in there and be a bruiser or try to, you know, just to break out of that box. Because I do think it's fun just to explore different, you know, aspects of what you could be, you know, and just to have fun, because that's what the game is about anyway. But yeah, but when I play a character that I want to play long term, you know, I do like that sort of moral sort of compass. Although the question of what is morality, you know, I mean, because my character Matatopa, he's not always the straightest arrow. You know, he might bend the rules, well, break the rules. It meets with his moral compass, you know. So that's the thing.
So yeah, in your system, I mean that's been the debate for a little while. Anyways, even within other games, is like what does it even mean for something to be like chaotic evil?
Yes.
Because most every person thinks that they are doing the right thing, right? Even though from the outside, we might say that is very evil. They think, you know, I'm taking action X because action X is good because there is no higher power. Maybe, you know, they might be thinking along those lines. How does that work within your system? And then how does that mesh with like do you talk to your dad now about the world you've created? Like how does that all go? You know, given that where we started this conversation at, you know.
Yeah. Well, funny thing is, like, my father, he eventually came around to the understanding of this was not evil. In fact, when I launched, when I came up with the card game, which was in the same realm, same world and everything like that. He actually played it, loved it. You know, when I was developing Everlore, you know, I would talk to him about it, and he was like my champion in it. You know, Dave, you can do this. You know, keep going, because he saw what was going into it. You know, he would see me come home from work and, you know, go in my computer room, you know, see me pull up information on, you know, the Polynesians and try to figure out how they figured out seafaring,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like this spell casting stuff that he was thinking it was. And so he understood what it was. He passed away before it was finished, but I believe that he would know, what it was. And so I think like, even in that, it was an opportunity to help teach him, uh, something different. And so what I do is like, part of my message in this game is that I want to show people what's possible. My sons, one of my sons is 15, the other is 18. And they've grown up literally all their lives with me working on this game, and they are finally, well, they're of an age where, they play the game, they work with us on the stream, they help sell things. And it's just been so great for them to see me do this, and then now for them to be doing it as well, because there's so many other things that they could be doing, and that's often something that people and kids don't have, is that vision of what they can do for the future. Unfortunately, especially a lot of, Black kids, because often, the media gives us, a view of what we're supposed to be. We can be like the rapper, we could be unfortunately, we could be like the drug boy or something like that, but not often do they show like you succeeding. And so I wanted to give them a vision of someone succeeding, and if it didn't succeed, for them to see me really working at it and working towards something. And so that was one of the reasons that I didn't give up, even though there are sometimes I was thinking, what in the world am I doing? But I just kept going.
So as your own boys play then, what type of characters do they usually play?
Their characters are not moral. Yes. They both of them are playing halflings, and they my youngest son, he plays a halfling from Chayuksin, and he wants to actually be like an assassin type. He's actually become like the first blood elemental in Everlore. And then my oldest is like a thief, basically. And his character just wants to get like his hands on everything he can. But it's funny because he's like, he sort of makes me like look at him like, because some of the things he comes up with in game, it's just funny because they're unique, and then like the way they haggle sometimes, and then you see the wheels in their mind turning. But I like it, but then sometimes as a father, I'm thinking, okay, I got to watch out for that. But it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and I thank you for sharing about your father. Sorry about his passing.
Oh yeah.
But seeing that relationship where you see your parent not just as a parent but as a person, and then they see you more as a person than not just a child, and then going through that with your own kids. That's I mean, the fact that you've been doing this game that whole time, and the game is intertwined in all of your personality and your family, that's pretty special. What would be your hope then for the game? I mean, besides commercial success and having the freedom to do the things you enjoy and not have to worry about the things you don't enjoy with the company, what would you hope to see the game do in the future? Besides all of it,
one of the things that, as far as, like, commercial success, one of the things we wanted to do is like, um, I'd love to get into like video games,
Oh, okay.
and obviously novels, but live action movies would be my passion. Um, Growing up, I used to take my nieces and nephews to movies, and I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a movie and seen an idea and thought, "Oh, that was my idea," you know, and
Yeah.
I would say, "Oh man, I was going to do that," and so even at that young age, it taught me that I had good ideas, and so
Hmm.
like I can't wait to be in a movie and actually see my ideas on screen. So those are like, as far as the company, those dreams there, but what I want to do with Everlore is, um, you know, I, I I look at this as, and I say, I want to change the world one heart at a time, and what I mean by that is, um, I have conversations with people um, about diversity and inclusion, and when I when I started developing this game, it was because I had experiences where I was not accepted, and
Mm.
I understood that there were others who had that experience, and I wanted to create a space where people could feel like they were understood and they were accepted. And so then when I released it, um, almost at every event I go to, I'm having a conversation with two, three, or four people, who will share with me personal stories, and I'm a
Hmm.
stranger, but they're telling me personal stories about why this is touching them, and
Hmm.
I mean, white people, black people, people from all different walks of life, um, and this is just confirming why the message is so important, and so what I'm hoping to be is a voice for people who are often unheard. And as an educator, one of the things that I'm hoping to do is to be able to show my students what you can do if you don't give up, because often my students will see me sitting there drawing, every chance I get, and they'll say,
Yeah.
Mr. T, what are you doing? Well, I'm working on a creature for my world, Oh, what's that creature going to be? Well, I don't know. What should it be? And so I
Hmm.
engage them in the world, and I engage their mind. And one of the greatest things that I was able to do, probably about 5 or so years ago, is I created an after school class, where I had about 12 students, and it was a 9-week program where I brought in students. I divided them up into groups, and I had my sons, who were probably about, what, 12 and 13 or so at the time,
Hmm.
and they came in, and the students created monsters. And
Hmm.
so they created two different monsters each. So they would do a drawing, and then they had to do a bio for the monsters. Um, and then at the end of the time, they would have to do a presentation. Well, they did a presentation in front of a panel, and my sons were on the panel.
Hmm.
And so my sons were the judges. And so my sons were able to pick the winners. And so the winning students had their winning animals, or monsters, actually make it into the Monsters Menagerie. And so the number one winning team, I actually did a drawing of that creature, and it made it on the cover of the Monsters Menagerie. And so each of my students have their name in the Monsters Menagerie, and each of those students, they actually have a creature in the Monsters Menagerie. And so it was just a way for me to show the students, and I mean, they were fifth graders, but to be
Right.
able to show them what you can accomplish, and so it's just, I mean, they were just like over the moon to see their names in a published work and all that stuff. But that's what I want to do. I want to be able to show people that this is possible. And so, that's why, this, I was super excited when we were at Sin City Con, because I met a gentleman who was just speaking with me about finding a different printer, because we've been looking for ways to get the books printed for better quality at a more affordable price. That way we can pass the savings on to the customers. And so I was very excited about that, because we could get better quality pages and all of that stuff. And so I was on cloud nine and thinking of all the stuff that I could do and help further the message. But then I found out about another company that was out there sort of trying to use my company's name, use Everlore. And so it just reminded me that with every step forward, there's always challenges. And so one of the things that I'm doing now is I'm in the process of forming a GoFundMe, because I'm trying to continue the message, for my students, for myself, for my sons, that even though you do have challenges, don't give up. And so we're going to continue to press forward with Everlore, with the original Everlore, to contest, the shady practices that are going on out there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we mentioned this real quick as we started. It's not the first time in the world of RPGs and books that people try to get away with things because they don't think anybody will try to stop them. So I hope for best of luck with you with that. And again, your show's Evermore with Everlore on Thursdays on Twitch, and manchildltd.com is website. Anything else you want to say, David? I really appreciate your time.
No, I just want to thank you for speaking with us. Definitely, I appreciate it. I will definitely look into the Ice and Dice, and would love to see you there. One of the things I do want to say is that when we go to events, we don't just do like one shots. One of the things that we try to do is we try to bring you, the fans, into the world. So we provide more than just the one shots. We also do character creations as well as creature creations. With the creature creations, what we'll do is I will provide artwork, and so we give the people who attend there a chance to determine like what the creature will be. And so we do a write-up right there. We'll sit down and do the brainstorm, and then if you sign the release, once we put that information together, then you will actually have your name in the official book of whatever that creature is first printed at. And so what we're trying to do, our tag is that this game is for you. And so we want to make that real. So we want to give you sort of partial ownership in that, and so that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that you really feel like you're a part of this game.
Very cool. Very cool. Thanks so much, David. And best of luck. I'm hoping I'll see you around soon.
So. Thank you very much. You have a good one, sir.
You too.